Today I woke from a dream in which I was angry at this guy from my past and trying to explain it to some other people and just couldn't find the words. And I woke up from that dream and I thought I'd like to do a video about spirituality and anger, and I also tend to incorporate psychological concepts with spiritual ones because I think there's a lot of overlap. They're both about healing. And for people that are on the path of evolving and healing and growing and, being good-hearted people, anger is really a tough thing to deal with because it's so primal and uncomfortable, the aggression, and just, it's so out of alignment with our highest vision of who we are and all those kind of things. So I really feel that it is an important topic. And so about 5 minutes ago I was wondering what I should do next out of the different things I wanted to accomplish today. And I got an email and I scanned to the end of it and noticed that my friend wrote about how she'd been having a lot of angry dreams recently, and I thought, wow, okay, I definitely want to do a video on this topic of anger because that just really felt synchronistic for that to come up in that moment. Spirituality, in many cases, doesn't deal with anger. It oftentimes is focused upon that which is all but anger. It focuses on the positive, the peace, the love, the good stuff. And in the West, the primary focus upon how to deal with anger is forgiveness. And in my experience, the approach of forgiving somebody that you're still feeling angry at doesn't really work unless you've gone through your feelings more fully and are able to find peace with the situation. I went through a period once with some family members where I was just really angry, and I was reading some material that was supposedly channeled from Jesus. This is when I thought that Jesus was a real person, before watching the God who wasn't there and understanding, I believe now, that he's more of a mythological amalgamation of different hero myths that was first written about 30 years after his supposed death. But it was very strong, this connection I had to the material that came supposedly from Jesus, and very forgiveness focused. So I tried right away, and it didn't work. The anger was still there within me, and it bubbled up again. I think that anger, it can be like a volcano that is rising to the top. The lava is coming up, and it's scary. We don't want that explosion. We don't want to hurt the towns below at the base of the volcano, and so we try to push it back down. And for me, that's where gestalt therapy and its ideas about anger come in very helpful. It's about letting it out, expressing it, but in a way that isn't hurtful towards people. It can be yelling in your car, it can be pounding things in your home and letting it out through swearing and hitting something with your hands or bat or tennis racket or whatever. And there can be a true release of the feelings that go along with that kind of work. It, can also become an addiction if you don't combine that kind of work with a deeper form of understanding. And the deepest form of understanding that I believe exists related to forgiveness and anger is expressed very well in the book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And another synchronicity that happened today was like I was joining Twitter yesterday and wanted to choose some people to follow, and he was one of the ones that I wanted to follow. And he wrote like a direct email back, which is pretty rare. You know, if you go to follow somebody on Twitter, that they write back directly. So I thought that was synchronistic in itself to hear from him on this day that I wanted to talk about anger. The radical forgiveness perspective is basically related to the idea, which is everything happens for a reason, and that if there is something that we experience in which we feel victimized, if we look deeply enough into ourselves, we can find meaning and purpose for what happened. And I believe that there might be patterned events in our life that reoccur in which we are tempted to feel victimized that may relate to the kind of karma that we bring into this life from our past incarnation. And that helps make more sense of what is going on over and over. It's about building empathy at a soul level, even if we don't understand why these things are happening. But, you know, in this dream that I had, it was like the anger that I was experiencing was about having to deal with feelings of rejection and having to leave a state that I was in to another state to live in. And that was all great. You know, I was actually being lazy, and so the event that occurred pushed me towards, it was like the only thing that could have happened that pushed me west towards living a more congruent life. And so, yes, there is anger, and that doesn't mean that understanding of why something happened, how was it helping me along in life, means I want to necessarily hang out with somebody that I don't feel is healthy for me to be with. But by understanding the events in our life from the purpose perspective, what is the purpose of this event? How does it help us grow? How does it help us define ourselves and balance that which might be out of balance within ourselves? This can be a helpful way of dealing with events that can be upsetting for us. Make sense of them and avoid at all costs the trap of identifying with the victim mentality, because if you feel that you are a victim, you are going to attract experiences that reinforce that perspective over and over. Life is out to get you. If you believe that, it will be. The other perspective related to anger that I wanted to share was from cognitive psychology, which is about our thoughts. And one of the theorists that I have enjoyed quite a bit is Albert Ellis, who developed rational emotive therapy, and he has a perspective that is very focused on defining the differences between your preferences and things that must not or should not occur. For example, somebody says, to you, you're a real jerk or whatever, and if you tell yourself that that is simply something they must not do or should not do, that creates for you this feeling of this kind of deep betrayal that you have been violated against the sanctions of the laws of the universe, and this is a horrible thing, and that's a horrible person, and that kind of just rigid mentality. Whereas if you look at it as, well, I would prefer that that person did not say that, but I can handle it, And there's so many things like that in life that happen. You could lose your job and say, this is horrible, and I can't believe this is happening. And life is terrible, and all these negative messages, and that becomes your focal point, is being victimized by these events, and saying that this is just universally a wrong thing, as opposed to saying, well, I would have preferred to keep that job, but this has happened, I accept it, I'm going to look for something else. And I know in my own life, I've actually benefited from a job ending because it led to something that was more congruent in my life. Before I started doing work on the internet, I was working as a counselor, and one day everybody got notified that they had an hour to clean out their office, and I was going through my spiritual awakening at the time, and I just, I was shocked. But later that day, I was like, okay, this is moving me towards something that I will find more fulfilling, and it was. I didn't understand the details at the time, but I did have the faith that it was moving me towards work that was more congruent for who I was and what I wanted to be doing with my life. So, those are some thoughts related to anger and how to approach anger from a spiritual, psychological, personal growth standpoint. I hope you find some of that useful, and thanks for listening.